Thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Joy Lim Nakrin. We, of course, are following the latest on the campaign trail ahead of the presidential debate because tonight Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are going to face off in their very first presidential debate. This is really a pivotal moment in the campaign for both of the candidates because battleground state polls show a razor-thin margin separates these two candidates. So very, very close race. And the vice president has spent the past few days doing mock debates, practicing on stage with lights. Mr. Trump has said he doesn't need formal preparation, but he's been holding policy sessions with a small team of advisors. And tonight there's not going to be a live audience in the room during the debate, and neither candidate will make an opening statement. The two are actually not allowed to have props or any pre-written notes on the stage. They will get a pen and they'll get a notepad. The candidates' mics are going to be muted when the other person is talking, with only the moderators allowed to ask questions. And just a reminder, you can watch the debate in full right here on Atlanta News First and Atlanta News First Plus. Our coverage actually begins at 8 o'clock with the debate itself beginning at 9 o'clock tonight. Our political expert and digital producer, reporter, Tim Darnell, actually sat down with Alan Sanders, a former Time Magazine senior reporter and professor emeritus at St. Peter's University in New Jersey, talking about both candidates and what they really need to do to make an impression that could be the only debate between Mr. Trump and Vice President Harris.
Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump will meet tonight in what could be their one and only presidential debate. And we are following the events leading up to tonight's debate, the event itself later this evening on Tuesday, September 10th, and also the immediate aftermath of what could be, as I said, could be the only debate the two candidates will have. That's kind of up in the air right now. I'm Tim Darnell, and thanks to everyone for joining this special pre-debate edition of Political Update here on Atlanta News First and AtlantaNewsFirst.com. And we are joined by one of our favorite people to interview here on Political Update, Alan Sanders. He is a former senior reporter for Time Magazine, now professor emeritus of political science at St. Peter's University in New Jersey. And Alan, this is Donald Trump's seventh presidential debate compared to Kamala Harris's one presidential debate that occurred back in 2020 when she ran unsuccessfully for president, and her only other national debate that I'm aware of came when she debated Vice President Mike Pence as Joe Biden's running mate. Tell me what you're looking for from both candidates tonight.
Well, the debate is important for both candidates because both want to define themselves positively before the electorate. For Kamala Harris, she needs to define herself as a moderate, not as an extreme liberal, as President Trump has tried to portray her. So she needs to convey a posture of trust, of mainstream politics, and of competence. And that's going to be her primary goal, I would think. For Donald Trump, his primary issue is restraining himself. He knows he knows, and certainly his supporters knows, that he can go on and ramble incoherently and respond to questions in ways that have no relevance whatsoever to the way the question was posed or the issue that was raised. So he needs to restrain himself and focus on politics and issues, as many of his aides and supporters have told him to do. But the question is, will he be able to do that? Now, he's shown that he can do that when he focuses on restraint. But Kamala Harris is expected to prosecute the case politically against Donald Trump. And she knows that needling him could very much unsettle him and prompt him to go off script. So for Trump, it's maintaining restraint. and focusing on issues. For Kamala Harris, it's also focusing on issues, but indicating that she's a mainstream politician and a competent politician, entirely capable of handling the duties and responsibilities of the presidency.
Should we be reading anything into the widely circulated reports that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, his running mate, who will be in Georgia next week, next Monday, have really made themselves available for multiple press briefings, news conferences, etc., while Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, her running mate, to the best of everyone's knowledge, have only done one sit-down interview, and that was with CNN last week. Should we be making anything of that fact?
Well, the media makes a big deal out of it because the media thinks it's all important in determining elections and in reporting the news. Donald Trump's interviews have not always gone well for him. Lots of clips have emerged from his interviews indicating that he's rambling, he's incoherent, and his answers are filled with falsehoods. So I'm not sure that those interviews have necessarily been positive for Donald Trump with the general public. For Kamala Harris, yes, having more interviews shows an openness and ability and willingness to answer questions on the spot. And that's always a good quality to show while you're campaigning. But on the other hand, her campaign has not suffered that much from limited interviews. She may reassess that. It will also all depend on how the debate unfolds tonight, whether she will need to clarify things or whether she wants to pick up on the momentum of something she said and be willing to sit down for an interview. I'm not sure that those interviews really affect the public. At the end of the day, most people ask themselves, so which candidate will do the most for me? It's about me when voters get to the polls. Which one understands me? Which one will do things that are important to me? And of course, which one will do things that will hurt me the most? So I think in the end of the day, voters will not look so much to the amount of interviews that candidates give. They'll make an assessment basically on who is the one that's most likely to help me in my situation right now.
Kamala Harris's critics point to the fact that the reason she hasn't done many interviews or really any at all is that she can come off kind of inauthentic. She engages in some quote unquote word salad moments. Do you think that her campaign is refraining her from putting her in circumstances where she may have a serious verbal misstep?
I don't think so. She's a prosecutor. She knows how to prosecute cases, how to make her case in whatever context it turns out to be. I think the word salad comment really fits Donald Trump a lot more. If you listen to him for any length of time when he's holding his rallies, there are entire parts of his presentation that makes absolutely no sense, just words thrown out, fabrications and insults that really don't add anything to a policy debate or reveal any understanding of some basic issues that any president needs to be aware of. I think for Kamala Harris, it's simply a matter of assessing what works for her best in terms of making her case. If interviews look to her as being important or increasingly important as people raise the issue, then she'll do them. I don't think she has any problems in articulating where she stands, answering tough questions. We'll get a sense of that tonight because she will have to answer questions. In a sense, a debate is a kind of press conference. So we'll get a sense of how comfortable she is answering questions.
Is there one question that Kamala Harris could ask Donald Trump that could really trigger him into a reaction? And by the same token, is there one question that Donald Trump could pose to Kamala Harris, or that a moderator could pose to both candidate or either candidate that would really send them over the edge?
Right. Well, I think the one question that Kamala Harris could ask Trump or the moderators could ask Trump is, who won the 2020 election? Very simple question. and get him off rambling and ranting about that election. It's very clear the facts are all on uncontested. If you look at the evidence, that Joe Biden clearly, fairly, and won the 2020 election. Of course, Trump continues to lie about that. So that's a simple question: who won the 2020 election? For Kamala Harris, one of the tough questions, I mean, it can be phrased in many different ways, is you've changed your position on certain issues like fracking. So how do you account for the fact that you've changed positions on certain issues? Also, she could be asked about what did you do about immigration, and what have you been doing about crime in America? Those are the issues the Republicans want to campaign on. And so the moderators, I think, will ask her about that. And so could Trump in a repartee with Kamala Harris during the debate.
Could this one debate, presuming that there is only one, we don't know whether or not there are two or three others, several have been proposed. To my knowledge, the only other debate in this cycle comes in October between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. But if this is the one and only debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, can tonight make or break their campaigns? And come November 6th or whenever the election results are in, either campaign will be able to look back at tonight as the make or break moment. Is that realistic, or am I reading too much into tonight's significance?
No, I don't think there's a make or break moment unless something dramatic occurs, such as the last debate when President Biden basically melted under the cameras. Short of such a moment, which I don't expect to occur, no, I don't expect any dramatic difference. I think the electorate is pretty much locked in as to who they want to vote for. Most people, that is, not all people. So what you're really looking for in the debate is that small sliver of undecided or wavering voters on the Republican side or the Democratic side who may be swayed by either an answer or the performance of one or the other of the two candidates. So I don't think this will be as dramatic as we like to think it is. When you assess debates post-mortem, you find that most people like one candidate or don't like the other candidate, and the debate basically doesn't change their minds very much. They go out of the debates thinking that their favorite candidate did well or better than the other, and it doesn't matter all that much what happens. But there is a sliver. There is a sliver of voters who really do look at this and make up their minds in one way or another. And we know that this election will be a very close election. So it's all about getting support from the margins. And that's what the candidates will be trying to do tonight. And that's what we need to watch for as we indicate, as we assess, I should say, post-mortem, what happened at the debate tonight. Did the candidates make any headway with the sliver of marginal votes that still exist out there? That's where the election will be decided.
And one of those places where the election will be decided is in our home state of Georgia. We're wrapping up our conversation with Alan Sanders, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at St. Peter's University in New York City and a longtime Time Magazine senior correspondent, senior reporter. Final thoughts as we are only hours away of a historic debate between the 45th President of the United States and the current Vice President, and also America's only historic woman of color to have secured a major party's presidential nomination. Final thoughts from Alan Sanders.
Well, as you've pointed out, Georgia will be a pivotal state going into this election cycle. It's one of the battleground states. There are two areas of country that are battleground, the upper Midwest and some of the southern tier states, such as Georgia, also Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina. And those are the states that will make the difference as to who wins. It's the sliver of voters in those states who will decide who wins the 270 electoral votes that are necessary necessary to win the presidency. And so I expect that people in Georgia will be listening and hearing a lot of ads from the two candidates. There'll be a lot of visits by the two candidates to Georgia, the four candidates, actually, both the presidential candidates and the vice presidential candidates. So Georgia voters will be heard very loudly when the vote tallies are made in November during the election day. So Georgians, the elections is very much in your hands, as it is with about 6 other states that will be the battleground states that decide the election.
Well, that's exciting to hear from Alan Sanders, who should certainly know, having covered numerous presidential and general elections throughout his long career as a Time magazine senior reporter and senior correspondent. And
Delta planes. This is a live picture right now, and the plane on the right that appears to be a smaller commuter plane was apparently involved in this incident with a much larger jet that within the last couple of seconds has just pulled away and sort of taxied away to a different part of the airport. So the planes are